I'm just going to stand here until some people come in, and then I'll start talking about something. Talk about something about fishing. I think I can dial you guys in on some stuff. Mike Lowe, what up? My first man to join. I appreciate you coming in. I'm a little early, so I'm going to wait for a couple people to join. Wayne, Jeremy, appreciate it, Mike. I really do, brother. Been watching you do your thing out there in Louisiana. Dude, you're killing it. You're crushing it, brother. It's really cool watching your videos and seeing what you're doing out there, man. Y'all's fishery is incredible. Incredible. Military, man. That's right. We're always ready. How's it going, Craig? Chris? Guys? Thank you for stopping on by. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm a little early. With that being said, you know, I won't get into the meat and potatoes right away. You know, kind of start off with a little bit of introduction on just how I started using the bait. Kind of what brought up the idea, where this idea came from, where it sparked from. Eric Spivey, how's it going, my man? David Woods in the house. Gene Johnson, what's going on, Gene? Joseph, what's up? Trent, how you doing? Tim, hey, I appreciate you sharing my post, man. I really do. I greatly appreciate it. You know, hopefully it's going somewhere out into the cloud and somebody gets to learn something. Keith, all right, guys, we got some people in here. I don't want to keep everybody waiting. But let's first talk about, obviously, crankbaits. Dude, insane. It's been on. Crankbaits. I'm going to dial you in on something. And I think everybody can take this to wherever you are, whether it be Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Gulf Coast. Guys, it's actually pretty popular in some places in the Gulf Coast, and it's not a secret here. Very few people throw it, but it's not known, you know. But anywho, little background on what's going on, how I learned about it, what sparked my idea, what got me enthused. First and foremost, bass fishermen love throwing lures. You know, for a while I was playing around with some glide baits. My bass fishermen out there know what I'm talking about. Throwing glide baits for speckled trout and redfish. And I had a couple of followers, but I always found myself going right back to a jig or a jerk bait or a twitch bait. It just, for whatever reason, the bigger profile hard plastics just, I don't know, it just wasn't getting it done. But long story short, a few years back, my girlfriend and I were on the boat, and you know, we're in a school of specs, and she decides to throw this. And I actually found it, which is really cool. I found it, and it reminded me of her, dang it. But anyhow, she ends up throwing this on my boat. And she's catching trout. I'm not even thinking anything of it. I'm like, we're in a school of specs. You throw anything in there is going to catch fish. No, whatever. That thing's goofy looking. But anyhow, a couple weeks ago, I'm watching an episode of 30 Miles Out. And I see him in like Texas or somewhere throwing this lure. It just so happened to be this lure. And I actually got this from another captain that retired. He had a box full of lures. He's like, Josh, just take all this, man. I don't need it. I don't want it. And I'm like, okay. You know, this was in there. Girlfriend picks it up. She throws it. She catches fish. But anywho, I'm watching 30 Miles Out. He's throwing this exact lure. Just so happens to be. And he's catching fish over there in Texas. He moves over here to Pensacola, Florida. And he's in the Sound throwing this, not this particular color. But he's catching trout in gin clear water on a crankbait. Now my wheels are turning. I'm like, hold up. I gotta check this out. I go to Tackle Warehouse. I order a box of cranks. Okay, after playing with some that I got from another place. But anyhow, the deal with these. Okay, when you think crankbait, most people tend to think deep, relatively deep. Okay. The crankbaits I'm throwing are very, very, very shallow runners. In fact, wake baits. Okay, wake baits, very, very shallow running crankbaits, floating crankbaits. It is absolutely getting the job done. That is kind of where I got this idea from. And I didn't invent the wake bait. I didn't invent the shallow running crankbait. It's not my idea. I'm not the first one to do it, but it does work, and I'm sharing that with y'all. Anywho, that's where the idea came from, and I just wanted to put that out there, give the respects to the people that shared it with me. I'm going to share it with you guys, and moving on. Okay, the crankbaits that I have thrown, all right, I'm not going to go into the exact names, but the wake baits, the very shallow running crankbaits, the floaters, Rapala, Yozuri, Mans, Lucky Craft, and Strike King. Threw them all. And I'm going to tell you what, guys, they all work. Every single one of them worked. Every single one. It was incredible. In fact, the first day I went out, I was out with my buddy Thomas McLeod. We're in the kayaks. We're just having a good time. And I was like, all right, I'm going to bust this thing out and see what I can do with it. And at that time, it was a Yozuri 3DB wake bait. Okay, it's a crankbait. Very, very shallow running. And if y'all watched some of my posts, the reason why I got so excited was because throwing a crankbait is probably the easiest thing in the world to do. You throw it out there, you reel it in. You can get fancy with it, you can do certain things with it, I'll talk about that later, but for the most part, throw it out, reel it in. Throw it out, reel it in. As a charter captain, as a guy that has to explain people how to walk the dog, how to get the rhythm with a jerkbait or a twitch bait constantly on a day-to-day basis, you're saying the same thing over and over and over again. It's not so much easier to just be like, here, take this, throw it out, and reel it in. Cover as much water as you want. You got it. And sure enough, that's really all you got to do, guys, with these things is, you know, throw it out and reel it in. What's really, really cool about it is that with these very shallow running wake baits and or crankbaits, you know, some companies call it differently. Some call it a crankbait, shallow running. For the most part, the ones I'm throwing, the wake bait type, the floaters, they're only running 6 inches underneath the surface at most. Okay? As an inshore person, I'm constantly in about 3 feet or less. Okay? Constantly. What this is going to allow you... How's it going, Brian? I appreciate it, brother. Ray, what's going on? What's really cool about throwing shallow water cranks and or wake baits is the amount of water you're able to cover. Okay, if you looked at my past live in the fishing room deal, I was saying, guys, we're in transition. Okay, the fish are moving. They're either here or they're there. Who knows? They're somewhere in between. Okay, this makes an awesome search bait. You can cover a serious amount of ground with a crankbait in a hurry. Bomb casting this thing, reel it in. Bomb cast, reel it in. Bomb cast, reel it in. What that allows you to do, what allows me to do, what allows every angler to do is cover more ground and get more casts in more efficiently. The more casts you make throughout a day, whatever your day may be, it might be an hour, it might be 2 hours, it might be all day, you're going to get more cast in throwing a crankbait. The more cast you put out in the water, the more bites you're going to get. It's a numbers game. It's just mathematically, you know, consistent. The more fish, or the more you go fishing, the more fish you're going to catch. But back to the wake bait, back to the crank. Zones, okay? What this allowed me to do was throw in areas that I couldn't throw before unless I was throwing a top water or like something weedless, like a fluke, okay? When I was fishing with Thomas McLeod, I was throwing as shallow as I could over oysters. All the way up to the bank over oysters. In places I would not throw a jerkbait, I would not throw a twitch bait. Places where, again, fluke or top water only. What's really cool about this, a crankbait and or wake bait, is that when it hits those oysters, when it hits those rocks, when it hits that structure, that wood, it deflects off, okay? So you can sit there, throw it up super shallow, places that you can't throw usually. Burn it and you feel it bumping the rocks, bump, 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 or the oysters, bump, 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 bump. All of a sudden you get that one bump, you know, it goes off. That rock just became alive. And just recently I took a client out and we threw crankbaits the entire time. I was on a crankbait bite, so we threw it the entire time. And he was throwing this thing so far up shallow into the rocks. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. I'm about to lose it. he never once got a snag. I have never once gotten a snag throwing this. It's going to happen eventually, but I'm throwing it in places that I usually would not throw a hard bait. How's it going, Tom? Okay. So that's what's really cool about it. You're able to cover a lot of water. You're able to throw it super, super shallow. Again, it don't matter how hard you burn these things. It's not going below 6 inches. It's not. Okay. How's it going, Kenny? Appreciate you coming in, brother. I really do. I really do appreciate it. But where it also shines, all right, where this thing will outbeat any other lure. Okay. Choppy. Dirty, it's blowing, you know, like places where a jerk bait, a twitch bait just does not get the fish's attention. Okay, like you practically want to throw a gulp 8-inch twisty tail just to get someone's attention or something like that. Right? I'm just throwing something out there, but this thing gives off a lot of vibration. It gives off a lot of flash. Okay, and that hard vibration. Some of these rattle pretty dang good. It's creating a lot of sound, a lot of vibration, a lot of flash. You're covering water. It's easy to use. You're not worried about creating a rhythm with any type of other lure. So in those really choppy, muddy, blowing, it's just, you know, those horrible conditions, these things shine. And my man Thomas McLeod, again, I keep bringing this up because he was there with me. We would throw jerk baits, spoons, soft plastics, everything, not catch anything. I would throw this, boom, hook up. I'd go back to a jerkbait, nothing. It's just not getting their attention. Not only is it catching redfish, but it's also catching trout. And we got some really, really good trout on this too. So it's covering, you know, the whole span of the inshore species that we have here, at least in Pensacola. Where do you buy those? I'll get to that in a second. Unfortunately, sir, I'll just talk about it. Online. No store carries wake baits. No store around here is carrying these very extreme shallow running crankbaits for inshore. This is a bass lure, and for whatever reason, you know, saltwater bait shops, they just don't carry bass lures. But fish is a fish, you know, they'll all eat the same lure. A lure is a bait fish. You put a bait fish anywhere, a fish will eat it. I'm kind of working on that. Not really, I haven't yet, but my idea is to eventually, you know, have some guys carrying something like this because it simply works. Talk about that later. But anywho, online is where you can get them. I got my notes right over here. Okay, so another thing really cool about the wake bait, crankbait deal. How do you use it? Different applications, right? It's a wake bait. What is a wake bait? A wake bait basically walks on the surface like a crankbait does, okay? Now, have you ever taken somebody out and you got like a 45-minute window to teach them how to walk the dog, okay? I get that all the time. It's like, guys, the topwater bite is on. Let's go. Oh, man, you're about to have a time of your life. You hand them the rod, they cast out, and they can't walk the dog. Well, I've seen that before plenty of times. Some people get it right away. Some people don't. Sometimes you can switch over to like a popper to where all you got to do is twitch the rod and it pops. You know, but for the most part, redfish and speckled trout, they want that walking action. They really like that walking action. What's really cool about a wake bait, the crankbait, you can cast it out, have your rod tip up, slow wind, and this thing will just stay on the surface and walk the entire time. Guys, I've had some serious surface explosions using a wake bait. Okay, I'm not sitting there twitching, walking, pause, trying to find a certain rhythm that they want. Whew, cut that out. Cast this out, keep your rod tip up, slow wind, and that thing will wake the surface and kaboom, dude. They kill it. They kill it. Again, there's a time and place for every lure. It's not going to always happen that way, but when it's on, dude, why would you want to throw another top water lure when it's this easy? I mean, why? You might as well just crank it out, brother. It's easier, right? Another thing you can do with this, like I was saying before, is running it over oysters, running it over rocks, okay? The more it bumps those rocks, the more it bumps those oysters. For whatever reason, it just don't snag. It just kind of deflects and kind of floats up and keeps going. The more you do that, if you can feel yourself bumping those rocks, bumping those oysters, it's about to happen. If the fish are there, it's about to happen. Okay, there's been so many times, like I just said before, where it's just bump, 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 bumps, and it goes off. Another place where it works extremely well, again, a place where I only throw things like a fluke, things like a top water, is that when you're working like shallow areas, like we always do, inshore, you know, we're usually working about 3 feet of water, and you have that much grass, okay, and then the surface of the water is right there. Okay, but the fish are sitting in potholes that are scattered around, and it's just a little bit deeper. Okay, but you got to work a lure somewhere in that zone, about 6 inches, really. This thing crawls right over the grass. Okay, you can cover all that water, burning. The amount of speed you put on your handle is going to determine where this thing sits. Now, it's either going to be on the surface or 6 inches down. But you can keep it at like 3 inches under the surface, burn it right over that grass, and eventually, if the fish are there in your area where you're dealing with that situation, where you usually only throw a spook or a fluke, shines, brother, shines. Okay, that allows me to cover water and allows the fish to really hone in on it. And I'm not catching grass. You deal with that whole grass problem. It's out the way because this thing is sitting in that little tiny zone right above the grass and the surface of the water. And read that real quick. Wake bait, yes sir. Birding, that's what I'm talking about. Faux show. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Now, things that are kind of similar to this is like a spoon. Okay, weedless spoons. That's been in the saltwater market forever. 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 Why hasn't this been in the saltwater market forever? You know, it's like, how come they don't sell this at Walmart, at every Gulf Coast Walmart? You know, it should be there. It should be there. Here we go. Michael says, what power rod you suggest using and what action? My man, you know I was going to get to that. I'll get to that in a second. All right, let's talk about that. Since he asked, right? 7'6". Okay, I like a really long rod for a couple of reasons, and I'll tell you why. Reel, I like a size 4,000. Reason being, line capacity. Okay, like I said, I really think this lure shines when it's blowing, when it's gusting, when the water's choppy, it's dirty. Okay, and like no other lure's getting their attention. That's why I like to throw this wake bait, crankbait deal. Now, I'm personally throwing, it's a 7'6" G Loomis NRX rod and a 4,000 size Vanquish reel, Shimano. The idea, again, guys, 7'6", 4,000 size. Reason for the Shimano Vanquish 4,000, it's super light. It's like the lightest 4,000 reel you can pick up. Reason for the 7'6", extremely long casts. Extremely long. Guys, when it's blowing 20 miles an hour and you chuck this thing downwind, it's like a 75-yard cast. It's you can cast these further than you can a topwater lure, which is awesome. Awesome. Now, again, the 7'6", what it allows me to do is also control the depth in which this lure is running. If I keep my rod tip up, you know that lure's going to wake the surface. Now I'm walking the dog. It's a topwater lure. If I put my rod tip down, now it's subsurface. The reason, again, for the 4,000 size reel, line capacity. When you bomb this thing 75 yards, you take 3 cranks, and all of a sudden Mama Bull Red comes and decides to make your day. She's going to run an extra 50 yards or so, and now your boat is like 125 yards from the fish. And you got this 7'6" rod boat up, and you got 4,000 size reel. You're prepared for that situation because it's going to happen. It's happened multiple times. That's why I did what I did with this. I did throw it on other rods and reels, but for the most part, I found that the 7'6" to 4,000 size reel works best. You know, you can do it with multiple different things. Another thing to remember is that you kind of want a soft action rod, okay? You don't want it to be too stiff on the tip. You want some forgiveness there. It just allows a crankbait to kind of do its deal, allows the fish to grab it, and you get a good hook set, so on and so forth. Hope that answers your question, buddy. I bought a case of those wake baits at Academy. Deadly. Awesome. Dude, what Academy? That's awesome that they have it in your area, because in my area, they just don't, man. I looked up and down, left and right. Once I found out that one was working, I wanted to check them all. I was like, okay, this is cool. Which one is the best? And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. I've used quite a few of them now. And like I said before, they all work, guys. They all work. I haven't found one that was just like, man, I can't get bit. You know, they all work. They all definitely work. So, yeah. All right, let me look at my notes here. Stay tuned. Okay, shallow water zone, got that. Search bait, it covers water. You gain more cast. It's easy fishing. It's a top water alternative. Profile. Okay. I have found that these 2 and like 3/4 inch baits, basically the same size as a Miradine. If you can match the same size as a Miradine with your wake bait, I think that's the deal. For whatever reason, they like these smaller profile baits. Now they all make them, whether it be Rapala, Strike King, Lucky Craft, the list goes on and on and on, right? But these 2 and 3/4 sizes I found to be the best size. I've played with the bigger ones. I just found that the smaller ones work better. Now, out of all the ones that I have tried, there is one that I picked out to say, this is the one. This one gets the LIM-IT-OUT stamp. It's going to be on my boat for my clients to use. And it is the Man's 1-. Now, why? One is price, okay? I found that in the business, okay, I don't care if it's $12, $10, $8, $5. If it works, I'm going to buy it. But when I tried them all, they all work. So now I'm thinking, you know, which one would be best to promote, to use, to tell my clients to buy. Basically, the best ones I can keep stocked in my boat, and that is still a Man's because of the price, okay? It is cheaper than most of them, which is really cool, and I don't know why, but Man's decided to put saltwater hooks on them out the box. Okay, that means you don't have to change out the hooks right away. A lot of the other companies, they come up good hooks. You know, the bass hooks are good. They do bend out, and eventually you do have to change them, just like any other hook. Even saltwater hooks, eventually you're going to have to change them. And which brings me to my next subject. Okay, hooks. Dude, I'm a big fan of changing hooks. Those are the hooks I'm swapping them out for. Size 2 KVD mustads. Reason being, you get that wider gap. They're a little bit bigger. They're thinner in diameter as far as the metal, the hook itself. It's got a little thinner wire. And they're stronger, okay? Granted, these will rust over time, but it's okay because they're strong, they're sharp, and I would rather my clients, me, catch more fish and for me to change out more hooks than to lose fish. That's just me personally. Again, guys, the stock hooks work on all of them, but I haven't found any of them to be as good as these, okay? There it is. Make sure you add fluorocarbon to the braid. Absolutely, 100%. 100%. Always. It don't matter what lure I'm using, I'm definitely. Add that fluorocarbon, brother. Absolutely. You can order them on Academy website. Awesome. Arthur, quick question. Do they have the Man's 1- at Academy? If they do, comment below. I'd really like to find out. Or I'll even check here in a moment. Anywho, what I have found, guys, I'm going to talk about a little bit of my personal experience. I hope some of those tips and stuff like that helped you out. kind of dial you guys in. A lot of people can ask me, you know, which one are you using? And I'm like, dude, I'm using them all. But I found that the Man's -1 has worked just as good as all of them. Actually, I haven't found one that works better than the other. I really haven't. It's just Man's is cheaper. They come out with the saltwater hooks, so keep it simple, keep it easy. The redfish, the speckled trout, they don't care about those fine details that the other companies have. It's all reaction bite, man. It's all reaction bite. And honestly, I could spray paint a Yozuri completely black and it would work. You know, that whole 3D imaging with their flash, dude, just, it's simple, easy, and cheap. It's all reaction bite, trust me. Anywho, what I have found, for the most part, I'm going to talk about working the lure. Yes, but their brand works best. Hey, brother, absolutely. I bet you got it tied on more than any other time, too. I found that none of them outfished the other. I have had people on my boat with other wake baits, with other shallow running crankbaits, and we're both catching fish. Not one person outfished the other. I mean, I find that, you know, a moving bait through dirty water, a redfish isn't going to pay attention to those close details. A trout sitting in oysters with this crankbait burning over their head, I mean, it's a reaction bite. They're not staring at the lure. I promise you. They don't have enough time to stare at the lure. There's no pause. Anywho, what I found with these lures is that you don't have to get fancy with it. The most important thing about using a wake bait, using these shallow water crankbaits, is your rate in retrieval, okay? That makes the difference between getting 3 bites, 1 bite, or 0 bites. Okay, sometimes they want it very slow, meaning it's probably going to be near the surface or just under the surface, so you got to speed it up. Or, you know, maybe a few inches down, speed it up a little bit more. You got to play with that retrieval, guys, but for the most part, they just want a moderate, slow retrieve. And that's really all you got to do. That's why I was so excited about these lures, was that it's so easy to use, it's so productive, and it's getting quality bites. Okay, as a charter captain, that is huge. If I can make chucking lures easy, I am all about it, because I am not bringing a popping cork and shrimp on my boat. It's not happening. So Arthur says their brand is only $3.50. What? Dude, that's interesting. I haven't used the Academy brand. That's interesting. $3.50. I mean, that's hard to compete with, man. That's dang near free. Shoot, I can't even buy a pack of hooks for $3.50. Awesome. I'll have to check it out. You know, hopefully it works, and it works well. But again, guys, you know, that's my tips for you guys. I hope you go out, get yourself some wake baits, get yourself some shallow running crankbaits, burn it through those real shallow areas, work that small area between the top of the grass and the surface of the water, and you're going to be excited about some of those bites that you get. I promise you, because it's been absolutely insane. It's been so easy to use, and I think that you'll see a lot of action. If you follow me, you see a lot of my clients catching fish on crankbaits for the next 25, 30, 40, 50 years. Cool, Arthur. Change the hooks? Absolutely. Comment below. What hooks do you use? Let me make sure I covered all my bases. If anybody has any questions, let me know. Let me know. Yep. Hey, that's crankbaiting in a nutshell, guys. Crankbaits, wake baits, get on it. It's going to catch you more fish. It's another tool to have in the tackle box. That's all it is. It's another tool, and you're going to be able to catch more fish with the more tools that you have, plain and simple, okay? So it's something that, again, saltwater guys, not too many are using. I hope this exposes kind of something new for you, okay? Because when it's new, it's exciting, and I've been very excited, having a blast with it. Okay, so from Texas to Florida, Guys, check them out. They're awesome. Awesome. Oh, colors. As far as colors go, you know, I like two colors, natural and bold. So something that's going to imitate, you know, our natural forage, which is usually kind of a silver pattern, you know, just natural, maybe a light olive green back or a light blue back or a light purple back, you know, with the silver sides. And then I like something bold with, you know, the chartreuses, the bright blues, the bright chartreuse. And well, I take it back, and there's one more that I like, and that's gold. Occasionally I like to throw gold. Redfish in particularly, they like gold. I think it imitates a croaker. And actually the biggest speckled trout we caught on it was, oh shoot, I forget. Ty Sutherland caught it on my boat. It was a pretty big trout, man. Big, it was thick, big old head. But he caught his on one with a red head and gold body. So, you know, again, it's more of a reaction strike, you know. So I don't think the fish are getting a very good look at it. And they're just biting it because it's able to work a zone that they're not usually getting pressured on or at. Yeah, Arthur, not many people fish them around here too. I know of like 3 people that fish them. No, I take that at 4. I know 4 people that fish them, and that's it. So there it is, guys. That's me signing out. Unless anybody's got any questions, I'll stand right here for a minute and ask anything you got for me. But yeah, that's rod and reel. That's where to use it. That's how to use it. That's what I use. That's the hooks I'd like to change it out with. And again, you know, I like all the brands. Every single one of them has worked. I haven't found one that doesn't work. I mean, I'm sure everybody's got a favorite brand. Dude, get on it. How's it going, Lewis? Headed to get some now. Hell yeah, brother. Gold is awesome. Yes, sir. All right, guys. I'm not going to draw it out anymore. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate y'all coming in. Take the free information. Run with it. Show me some pictures. Tag me. I want to see some wake bait and some crankbait videos. Pictures. Y'all are going to have some fun. I had some fun. Had some fun sharing it with you guys. I'm going to throw it tomorrow. Be on the water at about 10 a.m. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be on like Donkey Kong, I'm sure, because, dude, it's on. One last thing. Check me out at www.limitoutcharters.com for the best trip of your life. Y'all have a good night.